All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports and Knowledge Podcast. So, as All-Star forward Giannis Antetokounmpo is currently out as he's recovering from a calf injury, there is a growing sentiment that the two-time NBA MVP may have already played his last game for that franchise. After speculation began last season, the Bucks are finally open to fielding offers for arguably one of the greatest players in the history of that franchise. And honestly, when you say arguably, the only person who you could say is maybe better or probably better than Giannis to put on a Bucks uniform is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Nonetheless, as this point, a trade basically appears to be inevitable because the Giannis situation has apparently spilled over to the locker room. And at this point, the best thing is for all parties involved to go their separate ways. So last year, we basically saw Giannis put the Bucks franchise on notice in regards to his desire to remain and be in championship contention. And to the Bucks' credit, even before Giannis, all of the stuff about him came out, uh, Milwaukee has done everything in their power to keep him happy. You think about it. There was a Drew Holiday trade that propelled the Bucks to the NBA championship back in 2021. The Bucks have kept both of Giannis's brothers on the franchise, on the roster, in order to keep him happy. And even with all of that said, there's been some bad luck, and there's also been some bad decisions for and by the Bucks since they hoisted that Larry O'Brien Trophy 5 years ago. You go back to the 2022 season. Okay, that year we saw the Bucks win 51 games in the regular season. Looked like they had what it took to go back and repeat as NBA champions. And then, of course, that Chris Middleton knee injury in the playoffs changed things. You go back to 2023, Milwaukee finished with the best record in the East. They won 58 games. Well, we saw Giannis get injured in round number one. The Bucks were upset by the Miami Heat, and before you knew it, Mike Budenholzer was being let go as the Bucks head coach. Also, Milwaukee started shopping Drew Holiday because next thing you know, it was all about you know putting Giannis or Giannis wanting to be with another star player, whichever way you want to slice it. Okay, but nonetheless, they gave up on Drew Holiday. They sent him to Portland in exchange for All-Star guard Damian Lillard, and it never worked out. I mean, even when Lillard was in the lineup for me with Milwaukee, I just never saw him and Giannis meshing together. And of course, you go back to the 2023-2024 season, we saw the Bucks go through three different head coaches that year, and I never understood if Adrian Griffin wasn't your guy, why'd you hire him in the first place? They went 30-13, and then of course, um, it was just an embarrassment from the word go. And then last year, they won 48 games. And then, just like it was in each year that Damian Lillard was there, we saw him get injured in their first round playoff series. And of course, the Bucks were one and done each year with Lillard. And honestly, they've been one and done in the postseason in each of the last 3 years. Excuse me, this past summer or last summer rather, we saw the Bucks get Miles Turner in free agency, and they did it by signing him away from the rival Indiana Pacers. But we really don't know what Miles Turner and Giannis could have been because Giannis has been in and out of the lineup for so much of the season. And honestly, I feel like this at this point. The Bucks season is a wash. I mean, you look at it, Milwaukee's currently 18-27. That is good enough for third or 12th rather in the Eastern Conference. And you don't know at this point if the Bucks are going to be even in the play-in tournament because we don't know what's going to go on with Giannis, whether or not Milwaukee trades him before the trade deadline this year, or they decide to move him over the summer. But nonetheless, getting back to Giannis and Miles Turner, we never really got to see them mesh, and I always felt, even when the Bucks brought in Miles Turner, that they still needed themselves a point guard to kind of orchestrate everything for this team. Did not happen. But the bottom line is this for me with Giannis, and I truly do think Giannis is one of the best players of this era. The game is really going to remember him, when his career is over for the accolades that he has accomplished. But I'll tell you like this: the grass is not always greener on the other side, and I truly do think Giannis is about to find that out the hard way. Why? Because in Milwaukee, a small market, Giannis is a big fish in a small pond. He's loved there. He's adored there. Okay. And people love him because he helped to bring Milwaukee their first NBA title in 50 years. Okay. I say that because you might go to a bigger market, but your past accolades won't amount to a hill of beans there. The people there want to see what you're going to do for that team, and you better deliver. So Giannis wants to win more NBA championships, but instead of him attempting to continue to do it with the Bucks, he's now more focused on ring chasing somewhere else. And honestly, with what we've seen in the NBA for a while, the ring chasing very rarely works out. He's going to go down as one of the greatest players in Bucks franchise history. Make no mistake about it. But you got to wonder if Giannis leaving town to finish his career someplace else because he's unhappy, this, that, or the third, or he wants a better chance to get a championship, is that going to destroy his legacy, overall in Milwaukee? You got to wonder. Now, I could, like I said, I could see if this organization didn't win and the organization was not trying to do right by him. I could totally get Giannis leaving, but honestly, that's not the case here. Milwaukee has basically given him carte blanche. The Bucks, they're never going to get true value in a trade for Giannis because you're talking about a guy prime of his career. He could still average 30 points per game when he is healthy. But with all of that said, they've definitely got to go out there and get the best possible offer for their franchise going forward. And if you're going to trade Giannis, that clearly means that we're possibly looking at a rebuild in Milwaukee. Like I said, possibly. Okay, but nonetheless, that word might not be something that the folks there and the fans there might want to hear, but it is a possibility that it could happen. Now, if you are the Bucks, what teams make the most sense for you to make a deal with? Well, unless it's something where the Bucks get blown away or some place where Giannis wants to be, um, I'm not saying that they wouldn't trade him within the Eastern Conference, but I don't see it top on their list as far as things to do. But again, I think being that Giannis has been there for so long and being that he's accomplished so much, um, I would imagine that the Bucks and Giannis are going to try to work on a trade together, something, excuse me, that helps all parties involved as much as possible. It's not a guarantee though. But with that said, I'm going to throw a couple of teams out there. Like I always say, feel free to agree, feel free to disagree. It is all good. But nonetheless, what about Giannis and the Big Apple with the New York Knicks? Um, for that trade to happen, you definitely know that the Knicks would definitely have to give up at least Carl Anthony Towns and who knows who else. But nonetheless, you'd have a solid 1-2 combo in Jalen Brunson as well as Giannis to not only help the Knicks get out of the East, but possibly win it all. Okay, now as I alluded to earlier, we're talking about Giannis being a big fish in a small pond in Milwaukee, but you've got to wonder if he's ready for the bright lights of New York City. I mean, we've seen a couple of guys from the state of Wisconsin who played professional ball there go to the New York area recently, and it didn't work out for them right away. Most notably, Aaron Rodgers, after all of those years with the Packers going to the Jets. New York is a different breed. Okay. And again, New York is a place where the media and the fans, they'll be happy to get you, yeah, but they can care less about your past accolades at someplace else. You had better deliver. And Giannis wants to be in the pressure cooker. There's no bigger pressure cooker out there than New York City. Also, a Giannis and Luca combo for the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers have new ownership, okay, and they also will have a ton of cap space to work with over the summer as they have room for another max player to put alongside Luca in the purple and gold. The Lakers, they are a star-driven franchise historically. They had Luca fall into their lap almost a year ago after that massacre trade, whatever you want to call it, with the Dallas Mavericks, and they're looking to build a future around him. Okay, and if this were to be the case, hypothetically speaking, Giannis would be going the same route as another former Buck. Of course, we know Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and his career with the Bucks as Lou Alcindor helped Milwaukee win their first NBA championship as an expansion team. And then he eventually did get traded to the Lakers in 1975. And of course, Milwaukee was still competitive as they got a lot of players back for Kareem, but of course, it was never the same. But nonetheless, he was eventually traded to LA. I'm going to throw one more team out there, and you got to wonder, would Giannis fit in with Anthony Edwards with the Minnesota Timberwolves? Just like it was with Karl Anthony Towns, Julius Randle would definitely have to be involved in that deal for that to work. But I'm just throwing it out there. That could be an exciting combo potentially. You got the Golden State Warriors who have been rumored to be interested in Giannis, and I think a lot of teams are going to be interested in Giannis. Make no mistake about it. But the Warriors, especially after the Jimmy Butler injury, I'm not sure if Golden State would have the pieces to give Milwaukee in order to make a run at him. This is going to be a big deal, okay? And it's one of those where I personally don't think Giannis gets traded before the trade deadline. A, because he's injured, and B, because I really don't feel there is a huge rush right now if you're the Bucks. Giannis is still under contract for next season. He also has a player option for the following season at $62 million. So Milwaukee definitely doesn't want a happy camper on their hands. They don't want a distraction, but at the same time, they want to go out there and attempt to orchestrate the best possible deal for them. I think this happens over the summer. I think it probably happens prior to the NBA draft. I think this probably could be the biggest move outside of free agency if that were to go down. And I think there's going to be a lot of players involved because this might be a situation, depending on where Giannis ends up, that you might have three or four teams involved in this deal. This is how big that is going to be. Like I said before, in regards to the Bucks, you're never going to get true value back for a player like Giannis. But if you can find a way to come out of this with picks and players smelling like a rose, you know what? Then you got to do what you got to do. But like you, regardless of the sport, I always feel like this about draft picks. Draft picks are only good if a team knows what they're doing with them and they know how to develop, find the right guys, and they know how to go out there and develop them. But I would imagine the Bucks wouldn't want to tear it down completely. I think the Bucks would definitely look for an established player to go forward with, and that's why I brought up the Knicks, because clearly you would have a swap at the very least with Karl Anthony Towns, and who knows what else New York would have to hypothetically give up to Milwaukee to get Giannis to Madison Square Garden. But nonetheless, these are some possibilities that could happen. For me, another question is, will we see Giannis find success outside of Milwaukee? This is the thing. If Giannis gets traded, okay, and if he gets traded, it's because he wants to be traded. But if he does, it's one of those situations where the onus is going to be on you to deliver a championship. Anything short of a championship outside of Milwaukee, people are going to question, because this is what you wanted. Okay. So it's one of those where the onus is going to be on Giannis once this deal goes down. And the bottom line is he's going to have to deliver. For Milwaukee, they're going to have to pick up the pieces. And it's one of those things. They're finding out once again. Granted, it was different people in a different regime, many years ago, but nonetheless, it's very difficult to keep superstars happy, especially in the NBA. And I think, even with that said, I think all of this was triggered by the Bucks pushing the panic button 3 years ago when Giannis was injured and they lost in the playoffs and they fired Mike Budenholzer. I think personally, okay, that was the beginning of the end of the relationship. with Giannis and the Bucks. And of course, it's just been a slow death over the last couple of years. They've tried to keep it together. They've tried to piece it together. But I think at this point between Giannis and franchise, they are clearly getting to the point of no return. And it's just a matter of where that moving truck is going to be taking Giannis's stuff. Okay, whether it's going to be east, west, south, we've got to wait and see. I don't think he gets traded prior to the deadline, but nonetheless, I think this is going to be the story of all stories come summertime in the National Basketball Association. Where, oh, where will Giannis's next NBA home be? But, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw in this podcast, you know what to do. Just hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you can check me out anytime at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365, and you could check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. Also, if you're on Facebook, like I said, just check out the Sports Depot 365. Like I said, one of the best things going out there, and we just try to deliver it. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.